Will democracy survive the next couple of years?
Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now, in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence, with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Access to Democracy. My name is Don Shelby. Alan asked me, among others, to step in to continue the long and storied history of this program, and I'd like to say I'm honored to do that. Our guest today on Access to Democracy is Ted Flaum. He is the CEO of the St. Paul Jewish Federation. Prior to that, Ted served as the CEO of the Jewish Family Services. And not only is he schooled in social work, but he's the former president of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. His undergraduate degree came from San Francisco State in anthropology and arts, and a master's in social work from the University of Southern California. Welcome, Ted, to Access to Democracy.
Don, thank you.
I should say welcome back. I know that you're one of Alan's favorite guests.
Well, I've enjoyed meeting Alan and being interviewed by him, and I'm honored to be interviewed by you today.
Thank you very much, sir. Ted, one of the things I'd like to do, first question may seem a little bit unusual, but an undergraduate degree in anthropology and arts, and I can't think of a better combination for someone who raises funds for the community. It's my impression that having stepped into the role of fundraiser from time to time since retirement, that asking for money is something of an art, and that you have to understand how human beings think and live and organize and share in order to advance civilization. Have I missed my mark?
Not at all. Not at all. One of the beauties of anthropology is to understand the human condition. And throughout the world, you'll find that it's almost innate for human beings to want to help one another. And to be able to really reach to people and to their better good is wonderful. And my background in both the anthropology as well as the social work, and I also have a master's in Jewish communal service, allows me to do that.
You know, we talk about tribalism a lot in the negative in these past 4 years we have. But there is something valuable in tribalism, the elder structure, the form of democracy that is sometimes taken because people have positions and they can say their piece. But the tribalism we're talking about today is actually the antithesis of that groupthink as it turns into some sort of anti-behavior. How can you kind of find a way to thread the needle on the idea of tribalism?
So I think my Jewish background and Jewish values emphasizes that, one, everyone's made in God's image. So we start with that as a foundation, which helps us relate to all human beings. But also understanding that each individual, each tribe, each group of people also have something to offer to humanity. The Jewish people have been given a task, if you will, to bring their ideas of ethical monotheism to the world, which is what we are tasked to do. But we also have a great appreciation for all the other various tribes. And I think one of the things, I don't think tribalism in itself is necessarily negative. It's one of the things that attracted me to anthropology is the appreciation of the different cultures and different ways people have interacted with each other. They create these wonderful communities and societies that enables people to thrive. And so I think the idea is, let's respect each other's, what you would call tribalism, but not see it as a threat, but rather how can we learn from each other's? Because we all have our own tribal histories that I think we all have something to offer and share to humanity.
So let me dive deeper into that, because I love what you've said, but I want to challenge just a little part of it. And it's not a personal challenge to you, just a challenge of the words themselves. Mm-hmm. So you have a group of anti-Semitic white supremacists. You have the Klan. You have all of the groups that have been identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center and by the Anti-Defamation League. You have all of those. Are they tribes? And should they be respected for what views they represent?
Well, as I mentioned, that the idea is for all tribes to respect the other tribes, and what they have to offer humanity. White supremacists don't respect any other tribes other than their own, and they put everyone else below them. And for some, they don't even see the human beings as part of the human race. So there's a difference between respecting tribes and respecting possible beliefs. And when one's belief is to wipe out other tribes, at least from my perspective, there's a problem with that. And
I would agree.
I mean, we see this also, not just, we are in what's happening with racial relationships today in the U.S. It's Black Lives Do Matter, and we need to respect the history of the African American experience in this country, and understanding their history and what they've gone through, and also what African Americans offer for the rest of Americans to understand what they have to offer to the entire country. They've been wonderful, productive contributors to what makes America great, as well with Asians. And it breaks my heart when I see the attacks on Asian Americans and African Americans or Latin Americans or anyone based on their tribe. That's not what we're about, and that's really not what Judaism is about.
How can Judaism influence, then, a greater population which is subdivided into those hateful tribes? How can your message of love, how can your message of the scriptures, how can your message of the Old Testament translate into real communication that might change someone's direction?
Well, I think part of it is the need to get to know each other better. Again, we start with realizing that we're all created in God's image, right? And so we have that foundation. And I think it's trying to find the common language and the commonalities that we share. And I do believe most humans share similar desires and similar goals. What we have is preconceived notions of what the other is, without really any real direct experience. And even the direct experiences we have, we take that one experience and we apply it all over. And I think, again, looking at more communication and Judaism, one of the things with Judaism, we are not a universalist religion. I mean, we do not encourage people to all become Jews. There are many ways of being moral, ethical people without being Jewish. There are many ways to God and having a really significant relationship without being Jewish. And we realize that what we look at with Judaism, what we try to expand on is, what does it mean to be a moral, ethical person? And how do you achieve that? You know, when I was at JFS, people were very surprised. I told people we serve non-Jewish clients as well as Jewish ones, and they were very, very surprised. They said, "We thought you only served Jews." And I asked, "Why do you feel that way? Do you feel that way about Catholic Charities or Lutheran Social Services?" And they said, "No." But for some reason, they thought we did it as Jews. And they said, "Well, how do you serve Jews? I mean, how do you serve non-Jews as well as Jews?" I said, very simply, we start with the foundation that anyone that walks through our doors is, again, created in the image of God. They have a soul, and we owe to them the respect and the responsibility to care for them, regardless of what their faith might be.
Ted, if we take COVID out of the equation this past year where people have been frozen in place, is this a good time to raise money for the Federation? Do people feel like they can give? Do they have doubts and anxieties about what the future is going to be like? Do they hang on to their money a little tighter? And what message, this is the second part of the question, what message do you want to have these donators to the Federation know and understand about the needs in a community?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. So we have an annual campaign that we raise approximately $2 million each year from members of the Jewish community in the East Metro. That goes to support our agencies that we fund, as well as the programs that we provide to the community. In November, we launched what was called the Yad B'Yad campaign, which is specifically for COVID relief. And within 8 weeks, we were able to raise $400,000. The response was tremendous. We actually raised more money for our annual campaign this year, as well as with COVID. So between the two, we actually raised close to $2.5 million. What I have found is we live in a very generous community. What we need to do is find reasons to inspire people to give. But again, I think the human nature is people want to help people, and we give them if you inspire them and you give them a good reason, they will respond very generously.
And it's also in the language of fundraising professionals, rather than just going out hat in hand and begging for somebody to give you money, that you can offer them this opportunity to be a part of something that is of value to a community, even to a community that is unlike yours. Is that ever folded into the pitch that you make as a fundraising professional and as a CEO?
So the way we approach fundraising is, one, it's a mitzvah. It's
yes,
a good deed, let's say, where, and we don't even call it charity. It's tzedakah, and tzedakah is a righteous act. And what we do is we phrase it very differently when we do fundraising. We are looking at this as an opportunity to give donors an opportunity to make a difference, to elevate themselves and give them an opportunity to do a mitzvah, to repair the world. And what's wonderful in Judaism, the person who actually is asking is more worthy than the person who is giving, because there are fewer people willing to make the ask. And asking people to partner in wonderful causes, whether it's the Federation or health issues or arts or caring for children or racial justice, asking people to partner with you in order to improve our world and lift people's lives up is a wonderful opportunity. I am so fortunate. My entire day is surrounded by either extremely generous donors or very giving volunteers who are giving their time. I mean, it's a great job. What else would you want to be surrounded by?
Generous people.
Generous, giving people.
Absolutely. About 10 years ago, I got involved with the JCRC over on this side of the river.
Yep.
And we put together an idea of trying to create what was called then tolerance. I always objected to the word tolerance because it sets up this differential that somebody has to tolerate someone else.
I agree with you.
So I wanted to get rid of that word, and we partnered with the Smithsonian Institution, and they came up with the terminology, the bias inside us. And after we fundraised to put that together, it has made its debut at the Science Museum of Minnesota alongside the race exhibit. And what I love about it, it could have been, because it was the baby of the JCRC, it could have been just a long exhibit of the treachery that has been done to the Jewish people. But in fact, it is an examination based on Harvard research of how we form our biases and why we hate, and how we can rid ourselves of that hate. And if you haven't seen it, I hope you get a chance to get to the bias inside us. And it's going to be traveling the country to 40 states. We're going to have to build now a second exhibit to hit all of the demands of all of the communities that want that kind of message in their community, because they sense that there is hatred in their community and they would like to get it out. That in itself, Ted, to me, is a wonderful expression about the blossoming of a new America in the midst of the hate that has been seen over the past several years.
Yeah, I agree. And the Jewish Community Relations Council is an incredible organization. I'm very proud that we fund them. They are one of our partner agencies, and they have wonderful leadership, both staff and professional and lay leaders. And they do a tremendous job in the community. And they go out to schools to talk about tolerance. And I agree with you that a sense of the term tolerance means there's a power structure. I would rather use the word like acceptance, right? But yeah, it's a great organization, and being able to have those kind of exhibits that go around the country is very encouraging, because it also says people want and are desiring these kind of educational opportunities. And so that's wonderful.
I like to think of the idea of giving as being predicated upon how much you have to give and what portion of what you give represents your entire worth. There are people who have scads of money and they give what looks like a big dollar amount, but it's not very much compared to what they actually make. There are people who hardly make any money at all, but they want to give. There was a great book called, I think, All I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten.
Yes.
And that book, among the things we learned was how to share. And if the power structure in the United States gets to a position, the moneyed interest gets to the position that it can find in its heart the notion of sharing, not as the politicians will call a redistribution of wealth, but just saying, I have and they don't, and I have an obligation, not noblesse oblige. I just have something in my heart that says these people are needy and I'm going to help.
Yeah. Again, in Judaism, we have the concept of tzedakah, which is not a choice. One is obligated to give tzedakah, to give 10% of their income. And the Torah, the Old Testament, you might say, constantly repeats about caring for the orphan, the widow, the poor, that you're supposed to keep the corners of your fields. You're not supposed to harvest them and leave them for the poor so that they have access. And you should not ever embarrass someone who needs help. Rambam, which is one of the famous rabbis, had 8 degrees of tzedakah, 8 different ways of helping others, and each one was a little bit higher standard than the other. And so there are those who give because they give begrudgingly or out of guilt, or you have to twist arms. And when in fundraising, I work for one organization, and people will say, I don't want my arm twisted to give. I said, you never have to twist a good person's arm to give to the right cause. You know, you don't have to twist good people to do the right thing. So I'm a big believer of getting that word out, and there's something really elevating being able to help people in a meaningful way. When we do fundraising, when we ask for support, we ask people to give a meaningful gift. And I used to go around, I used to talk to, I worked for United Way in Las Vegas, and we would do these Greek meetings. And I would say, how many of you know the difference between a meaningful gift and a token gift? And people were like, I'm not sure. I said, okay. I addressed this to the women. I said, women, if you are married, how many of you know when your husband has really given some thought to your anniversary or your birthday gift versus a token gift? And every single one of them raised their hand. And I said, what makes the difference? And they weren't sure. I said, here's what I think makes the difference. One, it's thoughtful. You know that he put thought in it. Two, you're proud of it. And he's proud of it. And you want to share that because you go, my husband just bought me a BMW. I mean, you go out and go, wow, that's really great. If you say, my husband just bought me, I have a friend, just bought me an electric drill because he knows if I don't use it, he will. So it's going out and being really thoughtful. What do you want to achieve with your life, with all the blessings that you've received? That, yeah, people have worked hard, and I don't take anything away from people who've worked hard and they've earned every bit of their money. But they are also no one does it on their own. There are people along the way that have helped you. Our country, the system that we have in capitalism, has helped you achieve that. And not everyone has been able to achieve the level of success because they haven't had the kind of opportunities that you've had even from birth. And we have to recognize that.
Ted, I know you've heard this a million times, but I think it's worthwhile for the audience to hear this. That sometimes when I'm asked the same kinds of questions that you're asked, there are a lot of people who will say, well, give until it hurts. When what I like to say, and it's not original to me, of course, is give until it feels good.
Don, you are right on, because a lot of people give and it feels nothing. Again, those tokenisms, there you go. I don't even remember. It should feel good. You should feel like I've accomplished something. I've really made a meaningful difference. And it's not just a meaningful difference in someone else's life. It should be a really meaningful difference in your life that you go, yeah, I am part of humanity. And I am so blessed to be able to participate in the pleasure of tzedakah or charity. I told one of the rabbis, I said, it's a shame. There's a blessing for everything. I said, I wish everyone who wrote a check to a charity would say a little blessing saying, thank you for providing me the resources to be able to make a difference in other people's lives. I mean, we should do that for every charity that we give money to.
Let me get to some of the difficult questions. We've got 5 minutes remaining, but I want to ask you specifically so that our audience can be aware. What are the greatest needs you're seeing right now that require the tzedakah, that require people to open their hearts and give with purpose for solving problems that exist in our society? What do you see as those?
Wow. I mean, that's a huge question. Obviously some of the big issues right now is dealing with racial and social and economic justice. That's an area that we focus on through some of our other agencies. When we raise money at the Federation, it's mainly to support our local and overseas Jewish institutions for the safety of Jews here and abroad. But what I have found is most members of the Jewish community who give to the Federation also support a myriad of other charities. And we're very blessed, again, being a very generous community. So social and economic and racial justice, education is vital. I do believe that as a country, we have a vested interest to make sure that we have a well-educated community of citizens, that there's an investment that we have to make in education for the long term. And of course, we're talking about, I know there's talk of infrastructure and I'll leave that to the politicians, and that's way above what we focus on. But there's so many needs out there. I mean, there are people hurting, of course, and there's the COVID, and COVID made it really clear that there are disparities between different tribes, if you will, and part of those tribes are economic tribes, right? But we need to come together as one, as Americans, two, as a community, and three, as the human race, and deal with our local, national, and overseas needs. We have a responsibility all over.
Ted, this may be a tougher question than, not that you're incapable of handling this, but it may require a little time. But can we leave policy to politicians? When I'm talking about a systemic racism, as an example, the injustice that has developed over 400 years, can we leave it to the politicians to solve the problem, or do people have to somehow find it in their hearts to say there's a responsibility to undo the past and to bring everyone into the light of day? Is there a responsibility there that we can't leave to policy that is formed by government?
Well, no, I think, look, at the end of the day, we are all responsible to address the issue of racism that we see, whether it's on a policy level or on an individual level. Look, you can pass laws and you can, try and diminish discrimination and racism, but at the end of the day, people are going to feel what they feel, and they're going to act the way they act. And you can, do policies, but we need to take a look in ourselves and say, what is it about me that I need to be aware of? And what are my biases, as you said? And who do I need to reach my hand out to and start a conversation with?
That's wonderful. I want to leave it there, and I want people to remember the tzedakah, and they have to look it up, go to Wikipedia, try to figure it out, and see if that applies to them, no matter what their denomination, whatever their faith tradition is. That is something that I wish to adopt, and I'd like to do a mitzvah every day just to feel like I'm doing something. I want to be a part of that. And so thank you for those reminders. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone who is tuned in to Access to Democracy. It's been a great pleasure to be with you, and I've learned a great deal. So thank you so much, Ted Flaum, for being with us, and best of luck and Godspeed.
Don, thank you. It was really my pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you. And please join us in our next edition of Access to Democracy.